Right, hi guys, and welcome back to Why Do Men, the podcast exploring male behaviour in dating and relationships. Today's episode is about something that's quite divisive and filled with nuance. We're going to explore why men don't approach women in real life anymore, and whether that's actually the case. Are we all too scared? Have dating apps made us lazy? Or is it actually more complicated than that? To help us unpack all of this, I'm joined by Lucy Rout, founder of Haystack Dating, which helps people ditch the apps and actually meet face to face. Lucy sees it happen every week, men wanting to connect but holding themselves back. So we're going to explore why that is and what it says about dating in 2025. Lucy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tom. Very excited to be here.
You're a legend. I wanted to start the episode just by talking a little bit about Haystack and the proposition.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. So we're a 5-month-old business, and what we do is we take the tech behind the dating apps and the tech they're supposed to be using, and combine it with the power of in real life events to try and help people find what we call the needle in the haystack. We know that especially in big cities like London, whilst the world is very digitally connected, I think adult loneliness is very high. And, you know, the dating apps have left, well, I'm sure we'll go into it further, but a negative culture behind. So we're trying to just, hire the best venues in London, Cardiff, Manchester and Bristol, get people together and try and make dating fun again. So what we do is we use some tech to connect you with compatible people, but in a group setting to take the pressure off. We're 16 events down, all sold out across 5 months, which is really exciting. And yeah, we've had some great traction so far, but I think a la the conversation we're going to have today, there's definitely been some challenges and I think some really interesting conversations to be had today.
Yeah. And I suppose when we look at like dating as an industry, the big change has been tech, and there's some pretty good tech out there which helps people sort of generate compatibility. There's some not so good tech. But my first question was going to be, in terms of the industry, like that big change over the past 15 years, what's changed? Do you think men, because of tech, are less willing to approach women IRL?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things at play here. So the cultural norm at the moment for dating is dating apps.
Yeah.
I think, you can, much like, Deliveroo or any other industry, you can now pretty much order a date online and sit and swipe like this, a sort of Argos catalogue, and it's really kind of gamified and digitalised things, which I think is a problem. I think obviously society in terms of consent culture and stuff like that has made some very positive strides forward. Also some huge strides backwards if you look at everything that's going on. Let's not get political, but that's a whole nother podcast. But I think the cultural norm now isn't to approach people in real life. I think there's a lot of blurred lines in terms of what's appropriate and what people actually want to happen. And it's all just very blurry. I think people in terms of rejection, I think on dating apps, if you think about it, rejection is silent. If you don't match with someone, that's kind of a silent rejection, and you get on with it and you kind of move on. There's also this horrible behavior like ghosting and that sort of thing, which takes the accountability out of it.
Yeah.
But I think approaching people in real life is scary.
Yeah.
What if you get rejected on the spot? What if someone laughs at you? What if someone's unkind? What if that interaction wasn't wanted? And I think there's just a lot of fear. So I think, as I say, the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a lot of positive changes, but I think social media has become a very toxic environment for all genders in terms of dating. There is a hell of a lot more negative experiences being shared rather than positive experiences, which again, I think doesn't help.
Yeah.
I think that apps in terms of squashing yourself and your whole personality into 5 photos and a bunch of sentences is only going to do awful things again for people's confidence. And I think, the last few years, I think for dating, if anything, I think we've really taken some negative steps backwards.
So you've just rattled through every single topic that I wanted to discuss in very short form there. So let's break them down one by one.
So I'll go. So it was nice to meet you. I've been Lucy Rout.
Thank you very much for the 60-second Instagram reel.
Tell me, babe.
So the first thing you talked about was that fear of rejection, right? And I'm old enough, I'm not sure you are, to remember a time when dating apps weren't a thing, where you couldn't meet people online, where you were forced to meet people face to face. Give me a sense of when you see that dynamic happen at your events, right? Do you think there's still an expectation for men to approach women?
That's a really interesting question. So I think the way we do it takes the pressure off, right? Not to plug my own business, but the reason we put it into groups is so that at like 7:30 or 8:30, you're told to go to table number 8, and everyone's kind of approaching everyone. So I think that takes the fear away. But I would say, yeah, definitely. I think if you look at the dynamic and watch the events, I think definitely men are expected to approach women, I think just as a societal norm, to be really honest. And I think also that reflects negatively sometimes on the girls, because if the guys aren't feeling confident enough to approach, girls aren't getting approached, they're perhaps thinking, oh gosh, okay, maybe that people aren't interested in me, and everyone's having this kind of bad time where no one feels confident enough to approach each other. So we've really found that facilitating those interactions and giving people an excuse to talk to each other has been really helpful. But yeah, I would say there is still sort of an expectation. I think I'm completely against it. I absolutely think everyone should do what they want and go for it. You know, I think if you see someone that you think might be your vibe or you might be attracted to, like, always make the first move. You know, Bumble did great headway in encouraging girls to send the first message.
Yeah.
You know, reach out, ask someone for a coffee. I think there's this kind of real, you know, I talked once online in my content about the fact that I'd asked a guy for a coffee and I got so much backlash, like, oh my God, no.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, so much, backlash of sort of like, oh my God, no, why are you asking him? He should be chasing you. He should be doing that. He should. And I just sort of, my response was like, he's as busy as I am. I wanted to go for a coffee with this guy, so I asked him for a date. I really don't believe these silly gender norms of the man having to approach should be a thing at all.
I agree.
Because we all just stand there confused. Everyone loses confidence and no one's winning.
Yeah, this is it. And you're absolutely right. Like, that male-female traditional gender dynamic plays into it a lot. And I host dating events in London, right? And I see, and I think it's because of that expectation. When I see the guys come, and I don't know if you find this, but finding men for these events is far harder than finding women. Like, that's a general trend that I see at a lot of IRL dating events. My hypothesis is that it's because men feel that pressure. So when the guys show up and I host at these events, they are nervous, they're quaking. Most people come by themselves and they feel this pressure where they're like, I need to perform. I need
physically quaking.
Yeah,
like, we haven't had any physical quaking.
Honestly, I'll shake their hand and it will slip through their hand. And it's because they're like, I need to be this sort of quite strong, like alpha, charming, confident guy, because that's the expectation that society's placed on me.
Okay.
When I see the women, they come incredibly confident. Granted, these events take place in cities, so women probably feel a bit of like that they're allowed to be like that. They're like, right, I'm here with intent. I'm going to find my guy. I don't have any issue with approaching a guy, but it seems to be a guy thing rather than a girl thing.
That's really, really interesting. And honestly, I'd say not necessarily the trend we've seen.
Yeah.
I'd say there's definitely an expectation for men to approach, but I'd say there's definitely equal nervousness from everyone.
Right.
I think there's fear of approaching. I think there's fear of rejection. I think there's fear of coming alone. We have reps that meet you on the door. So the second we see someone that's come by themselves, we'll find them a group of friends straight away, because we know that, you know, like walking in is a bit daunting. And as you say, slippery, sweaty hands and all those things. But I think, I think it's tough for everyone. I think there's fear of rejection. There's fear of approaching. There's fear of, I also think dating apps have turned us into literal physical catalogues of 5 photos. So I think, and, you know, the negative and toxic kind of discussions around body image and stuff. And, you know, for women online in social media, it's all about weight. We're constantly slammed for weight or our skin or our hair or whatever. Men are constantly slammed, for their height, for their hairline, all these horrible pressures, which I think leads to, you know, very superficial dating. And I think in person now, a lot of them biggest fear is getting there and what if they don't fancy me?
Yeah.
What if they don't find me attractive?
Yeah.
What if I'm rejected in a room of hundreds of people and I can't leave with a single date? You know, how's that going to make me feel? So I think, dating apps have really not done us very well, I don't think.
But I also think the difference between an event is that what a dating app doesn't allow you to do is assess or feel that connection, that spark, right? And so I can understand the reason why people put in these criteria, whether it's around weight, height, occupation, location, you know, because they're like, right, I have this almost like this fallacy of choice where there are so many people around, I need to have some sort of filter to go for the person that I think I want. I put out a video on my social media a couple of weeks ago when Tinder released
the height filter,
and it went absolutely mad, not necessarily in a positive way, because it was very, very divisive. My opinion is like, if you are assessing someone as a suitable long-term partner based off their height, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because a lot of women will say, I want a 6-foot guy or over, right? And that only 14% of men are over 6 foot. So you're like, I'm ruling out 86% of the population because I want a guy over 6. Realistically, if you were to meet a guy who was smart, kind, funny, intelligent, charismatic, and he was 5'11", you would probably go for that guy, right?
Thank God you have this opinion, because when you said, I could not agree with you more.
Right.
And human beings are not Build-A-Bears. We are not Transformers. We should absolutely not be entering things as pathetic and also out of men's control as height.
Yeah.
No man can control their height. And if you sat down at a table and you met, as you say, like a great guy who's funny, kind, charismatic and charming, and he stood up and, you know, he's an inch or two either way of your ideal filtered height, you're not going to fall out of love with them.
Exactly.
And I think it's pathetic. And this is, you know, not everyone's going to agree with this, but I think it's pathetic that companies with such size and reach, such as Tinder, are, you know, being instigators and encouraging toxic beauty standards behavior, which is all it is. It's just at men. And if they were doing stuff like this against women, there would be absolute uproar, and it is no less acceptable. I think it's pathetic. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's why you're here. Okay, that's interesting. We spoke a little bit about rejection earlier, and this difference between when you're in an online environment versus an IRL environment, right? And I think on an app, I mean, I use apps, like it doesn't hurt if I get rejected. It doesn't hurt if I send a message and it's not responded to, because that's almost behavior that you're used to.
It's normal, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
But it's very different IRL. Yeah. When you host your events in your own personal experience, like, do you see that happen often? Do you see people being rejected? Do you find that men and women often will hesitate to put themselves out there too much because of that fear?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, so with the business at every single stage, I was single for 2.5 years, 3 years, before I met my boyfriend. And what I've tried to do with my business is take every single anxiety point that I felt in dating and try and remove it. Okay. So for me, I knew that going to an event and having a one-on-one match, I would find that really intimidating because it's done blindly. What if they don't fancy you? Then they're in the same room for the rest of the night and there's kind of an awkward, like, oh, there he is, stunning. We're not, you know, whatever. It all feels a bit uncomfortable. So what we do is we group match. And the reason we do things in groups is that the rejection does become a little bit more silent.
Yeah.
And that if, you know, you are talking to someone and they're expressing an interest in you and it's not reciprocal, it is much easier and a bit less awkward in a group to just carry on a group conversation rather than, you know, I think often it's as uncomfortable for someone who's trying to say no thank you to someone as it is the person that's on the receiving end of that no thank you. Like, it's not nice for either side.
Yeah.
So I think keeping things in groups is really important and trying to alleviate that anxiety, and also just push the fact that, you know, none of this is a competition, none of this is a weird sort of competitive thing. It's just about trying to keep people feeling as comfortable as possible. But I think there is definitely a fear of rejection. You know, I have loads of reps and we go up to people and we say, hey, you know, who are you looking for? Have you met anyone nice? Da, da, da. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, I spotted, you know, a beautiful girl in a red dress, but I'm too scared to go and talk to her because what if this or what if that? And we always challenge them back and we say, you know, what if what? If you're in a dating event environment, in my opinion, you've effectively kind of pre-consented to having a chat with anyone in that room.
Yeah.
You've put yourself out there, and, you know, what if you trot over to them and they don't ask for your phone number, or what if that, like, and the thing I sometimes try and say to people, which is perhaps not the most accurate example, but imagine when you're applying for jobs, right? You are getting rejected, 500 times a week, or how many job applications?
Speak for yourself,
Listen. Yeah. Sorry. You obviously get many jobs.
Yeah, so many.
You know, when I was applying for grad schemes, I probably applied for 350 or something. Constant rejection, And you don't really take it personally because you understand that it is a bit of a numbers game and not everything's perfectly suited for everyone. And I'd say, with dating, you know, you can go on lots of different dates, meet lots of different people, and not everyone's looking for the same thing, and it's not okay. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're not attractive enough or good enough. It just means that for that other person, you weren't the right fit.
Yeah.
And I think it's totally normal and healthy to normalise that. And it's okay that not everyone's going to feel the same way about each other. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't mean that you're not attractive. It doesn't mean that you're weird. It just means that for that other person, you weren't the right fit, and that's totally okay.
It's interesting that, because you spoke very, very rightly about different parts of one's life, right? So in a professional capability, you have to get used to being rejected, whether that's rejected for a job, whether that's being rejected for a promotion. For sure. You know, in a family or a friend setting, you might be quite used to calling up your mate and him being like, hey, bro, I can't see you for a couple of weeks because I'm cleaning my hair, washing my hair, whatever.
Long hair wash.
People, it's a mane, honestly, beautiful head of hair. People are more sensitive when it comes to rejection romantically, is my view, and particularly for men, because again, it's a lot of stuff we spoke about right at the top of the episode. It's conditioning. It's this idea that your sexual attractiveness and your ability to find a partner ties into your whole ego, right? It's
almost your masculinity, I guess.
Right, exactly. And it validates you when you're able to, you know, for lack of a better phrase, pick someone up.
Yeah.
So, like, when you don't have that validation, this is why it's so scary for guys, I think. It feels really hard because it's an affront to who you see yourself as, this idea, this person you painted yourself
I was
as.
able to quote your words, absolutely never mind, but pick up a woman. I completely agree. But I also think if you put the shoe on the other foot, it's the same for women.
Yeah.
So since we're little girls, we're not taught that our career is important, that we're not taught that we're taught that we're kind of going to, you need to find a husband, you need to pop out a load of kids, and then you need to get some good rubber gloves, which I'm absolutely sure you can tell my opinion of. But like, and obviously, thank God we're making progress, and we're starting to be encouraged to pursue careers and dreams and hobbies and ratata. And now a lot of women are actually so happy with their lives that they're getting a lot fussier in dating because they're actually starting to say, actually, if I can't find a man that matches that, then I'm not going to make it priority, etc. So I think, on men for a masculinity side, I absolutely agree with you, but I think it's as bad for women and people of other genders in that there's this societal pressure, especially, oh God, bore me later, but the amount of stuff online about timelines, or you should be doing this by your 30, you should have had this, you should have da. It's all a load of sausage. But I think there's pressure on everyone, and I think it does hurt to feel rejected because I think what you're getting rejected for isn't your professional skill set or your experience. What you're getting rejected for is you.
Exactly.
And it's only natural that that's going to hurt. But I really believe we need to reframe rejection in that, like, it's not something wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're not right. It doesn't mean you're not beautiful or kind or funny or attractive or ambitious, whatever. It just meant that for that other person, there wasn't, stuff there. But I also think that you made a really good point earlier about dating apps making it kind of like, I can't remember what you said, sorry.
Like the fallacy of choice. Yeah.
Because I think we had that fallacy of choice on dating apps in that, like, the amount of weird stuff we're rejecting each other for. And I even made a jokey bit of content about this, when I was single. I once rejected this guy. I was in hinge mode, right? And you're just in the mode,
Autopilot.
And this guy had a cat and he liked theme parks. And and he said he didn't like theme parks. I was like, yeah. And I looked back and I was like, I'm just a theme park about, like, what the hell? I think we get into this complete swipe fixation. And start rejecting people on the most ridiculous thing because there's this mentality of, there's always going to be another profile. There's always going to be another person. What if the next person was slightly better than this guy that I've matched with who's actually perfect for me? But what if the other one's better?
Exactly.
And I think then it also perpetuates in real life behaviour where we're doing the same. I speak to loads of people that met someone at Haystack, went on a date and they're like, I friend zoned them because I didn't feel da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, but you were with them for an hour and you had a drink. Perhaps try another date. Perhaps try this. Perhaps, like, again, it's this bottomless brunch culture of if something's not perfect within 3 seconds, we try and get a new one. And the amount of missed relationships and misconnections is probably huge.
And this is exactly it. And I think to the point around the generational thing, like our parents and our parents' did not have that opportunity to be that picky or that choosy. They had to, for lack of a better word, settle, right? So they met their partner, particularly if you grew up in a small village and that's like where you grew up, you had to pick someone to be like, well, if I had all the choice in the world, I would not pick that person, but I need to indulge this because I don't have anyone else to indulge. So, and then what will often happen, in my experience, is that they'll actually see beyond like these sort of filters which they put on the things which they think they're looking for and actually just really find that connection with someone.
For sure. And I think for me also it depends on what love is. And for me, like, I was in my Hinge era. I was, like going on all these dates and writing people off and friends and da-da-da-da. And then I took off 6 months to kind of date myself, as we all do, a bit of a self-love journey, lived in a hammock, all a bit of a long story in Colombia, whatever. And I did some work on myself and I realized that actually, what are the key things I'm looking for in a partner? Okay. And then I literally boiled it all the way down to 3 things, and it was kind, funny and ambitious. So kind to me, but kind to everyone. Funny, humor is a huge thing for me and I have to have something that makes me laugh. And ambitious in terms of, if it wasn't in their career, I wanted them to at least have, a hobby or something that they had passion about because I'm really career driven and really career orientated. And I wanted someone that shares that. I wanted someone that wants to build something with me and build a life together. And then I kind of said to myself, right, I'm going to find someone with those 3 things and work the rest out, And for me, that's what love is about. And it's about falling in love with someone that shares your core values. And then it's about figuring out the rest along the way. If they don't like mushrooms and you like mushrooms, whatever, just don't eat them. There's loads of trivial, stupid stuff. Perhaps you're an avid gym goer and they're not, but you wanted a guy that goes to the gym. That's fine. Go to gym with your friends. Like, there's so much stuff that I think we're no longer willing to be flexible on. And so many probably potentially beautiful relationships that are being missed out because of that. And I think it's quite sad.
And to the point of the episode, this is about men not approaching women, but also women not approaching men. I think a big part of this comes from that attitude of like, I know exactly what I want and I'm really picking. These are the things that I want. And so people are fearful, because if people were more open-minded about their selection criteria, then I genuinely believe this whole idea of approaching someone would become far less intimidating.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I'm just going to speak to this person, even if they're not my type.
Yeah.
I'm just going to see where the conversation goes. And if it doesn't go anywhere, that's okay.
But again, to your point earlier of just fallacy of choice, like, oh, okay, well, if I don't approach someone in a bar, never mind, because I'll go home and I'll get out my effective Argos catalogue of human beings, select 4 more and go on some dates next week. And it's just like created this really unhealthy behaviour. And, you know, to your point, okay, people generations ago, maybe I think you said some of them might be settling or whatever, or not necessarily making the love of their life, but people were falling in love, they were forming healthy relationships and they were making things work.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we're doing that less and less because we have this specific 17,000 point criteria. We have an Argos catalogue of people. You know, I also think there's much less accountability in dating if someone hurts your feelings or if someone behaves badly, or I think the stat is 8 in 10 women have been sexually harassed on a dating app. People can just behave badly, log off, make a new profile, swipe away and get away with it again and again. And I think there's a huge onus and responsibility that the dating apps need to step up and start taking, both for the culture they're fostering, but also the safety of women, men, and, you know, people of all genders, because I think that's another huge problem. I also think safety comes, I'm sure we'll go on to it, but I think safety also comes into the approaching thing. It's like there are a lot of blurred lines of, you know, is me approaching a woman in a bar and telling her she looks nice, is that the right or the wrong thing to be doing? Yeah, have I just stolen your next point?
Well, no, I love getting into this stuff. And
let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
So, I mean, the point I made before the episode was like, the world is changing and it's changing in a good way. And people are becoming more sensitive, more attuned to boundaries, to behaviour.
Thank God.
That's incredibly important, right? And I do have a view that, I don't know, 20 years ago, like a lot of the guys that would be like the alpha, I'm going to approach these birds in a bar, they're probably not the guys that you want to be in a relationship with.
No.
So, but I think the guys that maybe are a little bit more inward looking, aware of their own behaviour, there's probably a nervousness now that they don't want to overstep the mark. And so for a lot of these guys, they're like, rather than treading carefully, I'm just going to pull myself out altogether. Or go on a dating app where you have that barrier. You don't have to worry about, you know, consent as much, I guess.
It's less real, isn't it?
Right.
It's like a game
so
that you can log off from.
Exactly. But I suppose my question is, like, how do you even assess, like, what is the boundary? Like, when you see people at your events or even in your own life, like, what's an appropriate way to approach someone?
I think
15 years older than your photos.
Do I?
No, I'm joking. That's not what you
I was
need
like,
to
well,
do.
I'm going. Stunning. And I remember we had a couple of drinks. We got on super well. He asked me for the second date, rah, rah, rah. And I made a joke towards the end. I was like, I literally straight up said to him, I think I'd had like 3 gin tonics. I was like, do you fancy me? I just said it. He was like, yeah, of course. Like, I think you're way better than your photos. This, that, the other. And I was like, okay, but when I got here, you didn't say anything. Like, you didn't say like, oh, you look beautiful, or you look nice, or like, it's nice to see your hair looks great, or whatever. Like, you know. And he was like, well, I didn't want you to think I was being a creep. And it was really, really interesting. He's actually a really nice guy. We just didn't work out for whatever reason. Like, lovely guy, but I'm sure he's hopefully now happy with someone. If not, he should come to a Haystack Dating, right? But yeah, we had this long conversation about it where he was like, well, I wouldn't want to come across as creepy. I wouldn't want you to also, he got really into it. He was like, I also wouldn't want you to think like I was only here for your appearance because you're a business owner and you're smart and and all this. And he'd really thought about it. And him and his friends has apparently spoken about it in the pub, like, should we, shouldn't we? And apparently they all concluded no. So then they're all doing it. They're now not doing it. But I think then as a woman, you get more insecure and it's kind of this, again, negative cycle. So I think in terms of your question, in terms of when is it appropriate and how is it not, and I think there are obvious yeses and nos in terms of if a woman is walking through a dark alleyway at 11 p.m. at night, is the right thing to do approach her? Absolutely not. But I think my view on this, and everyone's view would be different, is, you know, if you're in a pub in a casual setting and you approach someone respectfully, politely, and use some sort of, you know, kind, polite opening line, you know, oh, I hope you don't mind me interrupting. But I was wondering, you know, I spotted you from across the bar and I was wondering if you'd be open to having a chat or a conversation. For me, that's perfectly respectful. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely fine. And then obviously, you know, if she, he or they comes back and says no, or says, oh, actually, I've got a partner, or actually, do you know what, you seem lovely, but I'm on a night out. The friends at the moment, I'm working at the moment, no means no. Yeah. And you delicately and politely leave the conversation.
Absolutely.
And it's, again, not a reflection on you. He, she, or they absolutely might just be having a girls' night. They might just have just come out of an awful relationship. you have no idea what's gone on in someone else's day. They might have had a really awful day. But I think, yeah, we need to normalise people approaching each other. If you see someone in Tesco who looks lovely and, you know, it's an appropriate thing, absolutely go over and say hi.
I agree. And I also think, like, if it's a no, like, it doesn't really matter.
Who cares?
Whatever the given reason is, like, it's okay. It's not an affront to you. You are a stranger to that person.
Yeah, 100%.
So, like, it's okay to be turned down.
100%. And it's honestly never anything personal. Like, they might have just come out of a relationship. They might be on a girls' night with Mary from Newcastle who's never in London. They might be like, you know, focusing on their self at the moment. Like, rejection isn't a negative thing, but I would always encourage people to, in the right and appropriate setting, always approach someone. Like, you know, we're mammals living on a floating rock. What have you got to lose by asking someone on a date or asking for a conversation? But no means no. And I think it's just about respecting each other's boundaries and doing it in an environment that's appropriate.
When you arrived for the shoot today,
Tell me,
I saw you and I said, hey, you look great. And then immediately checked myself and was like, God, is that inappropriate? Like, is it okay to compliment someone on their physical appearance? Like, is that reductive?
It's a really good question. I've got no idea how I feel about it. I haven't really thought about it.
Well, you didn't notice it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
From my perspective anyway. But my question...
I'll sit on that one. I think, obviously we're not on a date, right? We're very much not on a date. I think on a date, I would personally always lead with a compliment.
Yeah.
Even if I met a guy and let's say he looks nothing like his photos, which did happen to me a few times, I would always say like, oh, you know, I don't say you look sharp. That's not what I'd say. God, I've been out of the game for such a long time. I'd say something like, oh, you know, you smell great or something.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, you've got lovely eyes. It's normally a lie. I'm joking. No, but you know what I mean?
Is that Lynx Africa?
I think a lot of men are wearing it. Anyway, they should use mints. Any do you know any good mint brands? No, I would always like give a guy a compliment. I think dating settings are nervous for everyone.
Yeah.
Not necessarily all men. I've met a lot of men that are very confident and didn't need the compliment. But I'd always try and ease people in. You look great. You smell nice. You've got lovely eyes. Whatever. Like ease them in and just be kind. And I think physical compliments are fine. But again, there's an absolute line between, oh, you look gorgeous or you look beautiful or I just think you look lovely, rather than like, you know, I'm not going to say anything. There's catcalling and there's compliments and they're in two entirely different things.
I agree. It's not a fine line. It's a very clear line, is what I'd say.
You know, derogatory language towards a woman about a certain body part isn't obviously absolutely not.
Exactly.
Like, oh, you know, that dress really suits you. You look beautiful.
Yeah.
Lovely. I can't personally, again, obviously it's situational. So if I'm in an alleyway at 11 p.m. at night and someone says you look beautiful, I'm going to run and probably pepper spray them.
Yeah.
If it's in a bar, I'd be like, oh, you know, thank you, that's really sweet. I've actually got a boyfriend, but here's Jenny.
Yeah.
You know,
right,
like,
exactly.
Refer it someone else, refer a friend program. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm on a commission.
Yeah, exactly. Code 10% Lucy or whatever it is. But I think we really overcomplicate stuff. And I think it's actually negatively impacting, I would say, some people that aren't getting approached self-esteem, because they're like, hang on a sec, you know, movies tell me that I'm just going to get walked up to in a tower by a man, hopefully not in a tower, sorry. You know what I mean? A man's going to come on a dragon and rescue me, obviously, which we all know doesn't exist and but I think there is still sometimes an expectation that we are going to get approached and asked on dates.
Yeah.
And then if no one's doing that to each other, everyone's confidence is just flailing. And it's just bad for everyone. So yeah, you know, I'd absolutely say male, female, or of any gender, if you see someone and you want to have a chat with them, instigate a conversation, do it in a polite and respectful way.
Yeah.
And if you're not for them for whatever reason, good on you for putting yourself out there, because it is intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're great. So well done you.
There's a couple of things I want to talk around gender.
Yeah, cool.
Because you mentioned earlier that you would have no issue approaching a guy. I know a lot of...
No. So just to quickly clear that up. So I think when I was single, I would be terrified to approach a guy.
Right, okay.
Oh my God. I didn't know how to speak to them. I call them the male species. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. That's obviously a joke. Oh my God, I would never, ever, ever have approached a guy when I was single.
Okay.
I'm chronically super insecure and like anxious and like da-da-da. And for me, the fear of rejection would have been terrifying.
Too much. And what about now? Like, I know that you're in a relationship, but...
Still no.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those crazy things, isn't it? Because all I do is preach online or say to people like, what's the worst that can happen? We're mammals living on a rock. Like, who cares? Da, da, da. But then I think when you try and take your own advice, it's actually really hard.
100% agree with that point. But
I wouldn't be confident. I think in a dating event setting, I would feel the kind of level of pre-consent that you're allowed to have a chat and But I think even now I would awkward myself out of it and be like, this is my friend. Like, I think, yeah, putting yourself actually back in the shoes, because I haven't had to worry about that stuff for a while now. I've got like the love of my life relationship, he's amazing. And I feel almost, I guess, being in a relationship now, I feel this kind of confidence to like try and help other people and be like, right, let's approach with you, or like whatever. But no, I would be way too scared to approach a guy. But I've got a load of friends that I know that would absolutely approach a guy.
Because I get this, I mean, I talk a lot on my Instagram about this. Like, I do a Q&A every Sunday, and I often get questions from women saying, like, I really like this guy at work, really like this guy.
I get it the whole time.
Yeah, and I'm like, should I approach him? And I'm like, why are you even asking me that question? If you want something, then just go for it.
100%.
Like, but you're right, there's so much more nuance around this that it's not that simple for people. And there's traditional gender roles, societal constructs which play into it.
Yeah.
There's just the fear of rejection, as you rightly say.
Yeah.
But I genuinely believe that the main reason is just because men are deemed to be the ones that need to approach women first.
I think so, but I think there's a couple of... Well, no, sorry, I've just realised. So I once asked a guy for coffee, but I was on Hinge and it was hidden behind Hinge, and I was hiding behind your profile, whatever. I've done it once, but no, I've never in real life. I think your point is definitely right, but I also think there's a couple of other things in the social media toxicity. Yeah. So there are videos of men and there's videos of women doing it back. So this is a whole gender problem. This is absolutely not just on us, but there's like videos of people slamming appearance or, unrealistic body standards. And it's all become, that apps especially have become very superficial. So I think there's appearance anxiety. I think that would be the biggest thing for me. I would like be confident I could make someone like laugh or like have a good chat with them, but I'd be terrified of like, oh God, what if they don't find me attractive, or what if they don't, whatever. I think that's a big part. So I think social media hasn't helped. I think... Yeah, just general. Also, again, back to settings. Work is really hard one, right? Because, what if you approach, let's call him Bob. If you approach Bob, you have a flirt with Bob, you ask Bob on a date, it's a no. And then you've got to work with him for the rest of your life.
Exactly. That's the thing.
But also, again, I think everyone's human. And I think Bob, I don't know who Bob is probably likely, I think, but if Bob's a good guy, I need to stop saying Bob, he's surely only going to find that flattering.
Right. Exactly. And it's kind of his problem if he thinks it's created a weird dynamic. For
sure. And again, the rejection thing is like she or he or they just wasn't for him.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that person's wrong or bad or unattractive or unpleasant. It literally just means that they weren't a fit for each other.
And then the other question I wanted to ask you was something which you raised right at the start of the conversation, which I hadn't even thought about, which was like, right, if you get someone that's overtly asking someone out, thinking about the person on the receiving end of that, and particularly if you're a woman and a guy's asking you out, and it is quite
awkward,
forward. Yeah. It's a difficult thing to navigate the no.
It's not nice. It's not nice, and it rarely happens, but I think it happened to me twice in all of my singledom where it just, for me, wasn't the right, like, it just wasn't going to be a fit sort of thing. And maybe I guess looking back and being self-reflective, maybe I probably was far too quick to judge. Like, I absolutely probably should have given it a coffee or a drink or whatever. But I guess that's definitely on me. But I would say like neither side for an interaction where things aren't going to work or aren't working or neither side's having a nice time. It's not like nice for someone to say no, and it's not nice for someone to receive a no.
Yeah.
And I think often I've actually heard of a new thing at my events, which people are being really open about, is that a new thing where if someone's been asked for a phone number and they felt too uncomfortable to give a no, they'll give a phone number and then just not text back.
Right.
Which for me is actually 100 times worse, because I think my opinion there is that you're giving someone a bit of false hope.
Yeah.
Like maybe they haven't had a date in a while. Maybe they were really excited. They get home, they've like going to plan something. You text
ChatGPT, how do I send the first message?
And then you're not responding. I think for me that's actually a lot meaner in the long run. But again, it comes back to that abdication of responsibility and the ability to silent reject. It's a bit like ghosting. I think ghosting is the most cowardly thing in the entire world. It's like, I'm just suddenly, because I can, gonna hide behind my screen and stop caring about someone else's feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't just mid-conversation just stop talking to someone.
No, that's true. I mean,
imagine if I just did this now.
Right, it wouldn't make a good episode, it'd be a silent meditation episode. Thank you, Lucy.
You see what I mean? I think it's like people are, giving the no or receiving the no, neither of it's nice. But I'm hearing of loads of people that are, exchanging the phone number and then because they feel too awkward to say no.
the other side to that coin, of course,
Go on.
is that people might feel under pressure. And that you know, the idea of rejecting someone and potentially some bad behaviour or conflict which comes off the back of that, it's almost easy to just say, yeah, sure. And then, know.
And also they're in the room with them for the rest of the night. And then, like, sorry, you were going to say?
Well, I'm definitely aware of relationships that have started off the back of initial disinterest, where they've just been like, fuck it, I'll go on a date with you. And then it's actually spawned into something
just
good.
because they're bored on a Tuesday night and they just fancy like a little...
Yeah, or like, you know, the lonely hungover Sunday.
Oh,
and
yeah, you just want to cuddle.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I think it's rubbish for either sides. And I think, but again, it all comes back to that hiding behind screens and abdication of responsibility. Someone doesn't want to say no in person, so they would rather take the number, go home, and then kind of run away from the problem. It's like ghosting. It's like blocking someone on an app. It's like, and I think, it's not nice, but also I can understand why people do it. I also think I would hope that 95% of the times that happens, it's because someone's trying not to upset the other person.
Yeah. But that's often the given reason for a lot of bad behaviour though, right? Yeah. Like ghosting in particular. Yeah. Guys, when they ghost, more often than not, it's because they're like, I don't want to hurt that person's feelings. It's easy for me just to disappear. I'm like, bullshit. Yeah, but please, that's a whole nother podcast episode. I think ghosting is the most lazy, tragic abdication of responsibility. I think it's so cowardly. And I think it's really damaging for a lot of people. Like, you read the stories, you know, girls will go on like 9, 10, whatever dates, and then just suddenly disappears, and you're like, what? Yeah, exactly. It's really cowardly. I think it's awful. It is. And it also, like, a big part of it is leaving the door open. That ambiguity is a positive thing for the ghoster, because then they're like, right, I can walk back in when I'm having a sad, lonely Sunday, right? So, but I'd say for 95% of people, they can't. Like, I think people are getting a lot sharper to it now, and getting a lot better with boundaries, and a lot better of like, actually, no. I agree. You can't just turn back on. This isn't delivery. I've got something exciting to tell you. That's scary. The next part of the episode is audience questions. Slay. From your audience? Yeah. Oh my God, yes, let's get into it. Okay, brilliant. I've got a few. We should get a beer. Do you have any? No. No beers knocking around, sadly. But I do have a fisherman's friend. Okay, we want mints. Also, great shoes, by the way. Thank you. What have you got, Burkos? I wore these Burkos on Love is Blind, and I've worn them ever since to try and get a brand deal, but no luck yet. So. That's why I dropped it in, but then you said that. Oh, right. Sorry. It wasn't. Try that again. Nice shoes, by the way. Great Birkenstocks. Are they Burkos? Yeah. My Burkos have lasted about 5 years. They're so good. They're so hard wearing. They're really good. I've had these for 2 years. You should sell feet. Okay, less about your feet. Go on to the audience question. All right. Okay. Why do men say they want to meet someone organically, but then never actually approach anyone? So I think everyone wants to meet organically. I think a lot of people are what I would describe as begrudgingly on the dating apps. No one wants to be there, but we're on there, not me, but I was on there, and the people dating are on there because it feels like there's no other choice. We're all busier than ever. We're all working later than ever, and it's hard to meet people. So I think people do want to meet people organically, but the reason they're not approaching, you know, out of the conversation we had earlier, is it's scary. There's fear of rejection. I think also as we come into our 30s, the likelihood that you walk up to a bar and meet someone who's going to be the similar age, similar interests, similar ambitions, similar hobbies, single, live near you, is very slim. You know, I chat to people randomly in pubs the whole time just to kind of understand the market a bit better, and it's quite hard to find single men in their 30s that are out and about. And if they are, they're normally out and about with a group of friends trying to watch the rugby and just trying to have a nice time. They're not really thinking about dating. Like, I think, you know, number one is fear of rejection. Number two is just time. Like, people are busy, they have hobbies. And just scared of being told no. Yeah. Also scared of looking creepy, like the thing we said earlier, like the lines are quite blurred. Yeah. And then it just negatively impacts the women as well that do want to be approached, and basically no one's winning. Stunning. I want to talk about signals as well. And this is another question. I mean, the question is, I smiled at a guy at a bar and he still didn't come over. Like, are men just not interested anymore? I want to delve into this a little bit more. Love, okay. Based off your experience in your events, as a guy, how do I know when, like, what are the signals? How do I know when a woman's interested? Okay, so I think they're slightly two different questions. So what this person's interaction was, she smiled at him at a bar and then he didn't come over. Okay, so look, that can be for a number of reasons. He could be married, he could be unsure. Okay, let's tick off the obvious. So he could be married, he could be dating, he could have just come out of a relationship, and he could not be looking to date at the moment. That's option number one. Option number two could be fear. You know, he might be nervous, he might be like, oh, was that at me, or da-da-da-da. But I would say in a dating event environment where everyone knows each other is single, and everyone effectively, again, has pre-consented that conversation. Like, if you're in that room, you're up for a chat. Yeah.
If someone says no, well, bats you off, then that's obvious. But I'd say absolutely bloody send a signal.
Yeah.
Send someone a smile. Like walk past, have a chat. Like life is short and you have no idea where a smile is going to get you. And I would say, you know, if someone is, but I'd also say back to this lovely lady, like, go over to him.
Yeah, I agree.
Smile at him, and if he smiles back, he may well just be as nervous as you are.
Yeah.
You know, pop over and say, hey, I hope you don't mind me interrupting you, but I was wondering, you know, if you'd be up for getting a drink or having a chat or whatever.
Yeah.
Hopefully this lovely guy will be either polite in the delivering the, you know, not quite right for me, or I've got a wife, or I've got a husband, or all any of those things.
But I'm at a dating event.
Yeah, I'm at a date. Oh God, I'm at a dating event. Oh no.
I'm actually
if anyone married actually comes to it. But no, it's just like, life is short.
Yeah.
But also it's also complicated because a smile can mean 900 different things.
Of course, but
it can mean like, Joey from Friends, how you doing? Or it can mean like, I just want to smile at someone. I would say just go for it. If you're unsure, just go for it. What's the worst that can happen?
It doesn't even need to be a drawn out like, hey, I thought you're really cute. I love the way that your eyes shimmer in this artificial lighting. Like sometimes it can just be a, hey, or like, hello.
Yeah, like, hey, hey, you here with friends?
Yeah.
We should write a list, right? There is 900. Oh, hey, are you watching the rugby? Hey, who do you support? Hey, you here with friends? And like, there's one thing I actually talked to a lot of women about is like, the scariest bit is that first sentence.
Yeah.
After that, it's fine.
I agree.
And it's just going over and be like, hey, you with this group. Hey, have you seen that guy dressed as a banana? Don't know, whatever. Let's plant a man dressed in a banana every bar. Or like, hey, are you watching the rugby? Are you from, maybe not you from around here because that kind of gives creepy, but like, and then as soon as you've made that first interaction, it's always fine. Yeah. It's just finding the courage to like build yourself up and go over is scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also life is short, so just get on with it.
Just do it.
But I would never. So that's
exactly. Confusing advice from Lucy.
Go as a group, right? Take your mate with you.
I always say don't go as a group.
Really? Go on.
These events. For a couple of reasons.
To the events, yeah, but I mean approaching in a bar.
Oh, right, yeah. But even in a bar, right, speaking from a guy's perspective, if I've got a better looking guy, I'm not going over in a group because I'm worrying that they're going to pick the better looking guy.
So fair.
So I think...
Isn't that sad though?
It is sad, and this is pack mentality stuff. Yeah, it's worrying about, you know, being rejected for someone stronger than you. But, okay, that's really useful. The final segment of the episode is just some reflections. So, go-to tips for men and women at your events. We've spoken about not being afraid, rejection, anything else that comes up.
I would say be 100% yourself.
Yeah.
I'd say, you know, it's really tempting as you meet different people to try and I've done this my whole life, try and morph into something that you think the other person is going to want. Or like I did it so much with men, like I'd make myself quieter or smaller or slightly more corporate or slightly less. I'd like dumb down my business achievements or like, you know, just make myself smaller because I'd be like, oh, I don't want someone to think, you know, I don't want someone to find XYZ intimidating. I don't want to find da-da-da. Just be 100% you. Yeah. And the right person for you is going to love and respect that and think that's awesome. Be weird, be fun, be who you are, and you'll attract the people that are the right energy for you. Yeah.
I also think there's a very British mentality around being like kind of humble and not being proud of the things that you've achieved. And I think as long as you position that in the right way, so it's not arrogance, then, you know, you're, as an individual, absolutely smashing it. And I know a lot of guys, you have 3 businesses.
Pending.
But I'd be like, I know a lot of guys that would find that really attractive. And so like...
My boyfriend does because he's a business owner, so he thinks it's cool. And there's no... But yeah, I would just say like, be yourself. I would also say like, recognize how you're feeling. So if you're feeling nervous through a room of 300 single people, give yourself a bit of a break. That is absolutely fine. Yeah. That is totally normal. You've had the courage to put yourself out there, which is really scary. Yeah. Enjoy it. Like grab a drink, chat to some other people, like grab a rep if you'd like to chat with someone and just have a bit of a time out. Yeah. And just, you know, set yourself, it sounds really lame, but like a bit of a challenge. Maybe say to yourself like, right, do you know what? I'm going to chat to 3 girls tonight. If that's all I do, and then just take baby steps. You know, you don't have to go in and be the loudest, most confident guy in the room and leave with 400 phone numbers. But, you know, get kind of comfortable with being uncomfortable and just, be polite, respect people's boundaries. Yeah. Find whatever opener you need. You know, you can take some of these ones. Okay, so is this your first Haystack event? Or like, oh, have you travelled from far? Or like, oh, were you also working today? Like, have a conversation. Yeah. Respect the boundaries. If someone, you know, is like, oh, I'm going to go and move on, or I'm going to go and chat to someone else, whatever. But also on the other side of the foot, which isn't a sentence and doesn't make any sense. Am I trying to say other side of the fence?
It'll do.
One of those. On the other side,
shoes on the other foot or the fence.
Or the shoes on the fence foot.
Yeah.
On the other fence of the foot, let's go with that. I would say that if you are engaging in a conversation with someone and you have, for whatever reason, had a bit of a decision that this isn't something for you, I would say set clear, kind, polite boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's just like, listen, I've loved chatting to you. I'm going to go and grab another drink and get to know some other people. I think for me, that's a nice, kind, polite signal that you've had a lovely time. You're not asking for a phone number. You're going to go and chat to someone else. And I think the more we create, it's such an awful word, rejection, but the more we create those kind of boundaries and make the signals clear, but done in a kind, polite, and almost, I guess, professional way, it makes the environment better for everyone. It makes it clearer for anyone who's on the receiving end of it. Right, okay, noted. They see me maybe more as a friend. I'm going to go and crack on and chat to someone else.
Yeah.
And it just keeps it respectful, kind and clear for everyone. Rather than, take a phone number, then don't get a text, then get upset, then maybe see them at the next event and you're just sort of like, oh God. I think it's on all of us to communicate in a way that's kind and respectful while setting boundaries and, encouraging positive interactions. The right answer isn't for us to all stop speaking to each other, which is why we're heading. And it's just going to lead to more and more people who want to be in relationships, staying single, not through choice, but because, dating is rubbish.
My final question for you was that question around intent. And do you find that without, sort of drilling too deep into it, because I know it's your business, do you find that everyone comes to your events with intent to be in a long-term relationship? Or do some people come just because they're like, I just want to meet someone and get laid?
Have a little cuddle. So we do a survey beforehand.
Right.
So we do, are you here for a long-term relationship or I'm looking for something casual? And then our groups are done as much as we can with that taken into account.
Yeah.
Which is cool because I would say, let's say you're 33 and you've just come out of a 10-year relationship, right? Yeah. And there was a tough ending, or I think I'm 30, right? And I find that a lot of people at my age or in their 30s or whatever are, getting engaged, settling down, having a baby, or going through breakups because you've been together for a long time and you're not the same person as you were when you were 20, age 30, whatever. And, we do have people coming to our events that are like, do you know what? I just want to have a bit of fun. I want to have some casual dates. I want to meet some great people. And I do just, want a Sunday morning, Netflix, whatever you call it, Sunday morning. And I think that's absolutely fine. And I think being upfront about that. And, there's even all these sex positive apps now, or Field and stuff. Yeah. I think being upfront about your intentions
would solve so much of this,
100%.
Honestly.
And it's really
And also
healthy.
Not stigmatizing people that are after something casual.
100%. It's healthy. Like sex in the right consensual, boundary-setted way is a really healthy, normal, positive, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, getting married afterwards. And if you are coming out of a relationship or for whatever reason you're just looking to explore or live your best life or whatever, it's a perfectly normal, healthy thing. So I'd say if we were looking at averages, I'd say 70 to 80% come to the event looking for a long-term partner.
Yeah.
20 to 30% coming looking for something more casual. But a lot of people also respond saying that they're kind of flexible. If they meet someone great for an evening or as a tennis partner or whatever you're paddle partner, then stunning. If they meet someone longer term, great. I think a lot of people do date intentionally, but also there's definitely space and room for fun, and I think that's not something to be ashamed of. I think that's fine.
I agree. So people aren't walking in being like, "Oh, that's the freaky casuals table." Like they're
We obviously don't have a sign saying one night stands only. No, I think, and people obviously we've had we've had members of the polyamorous community come.
Amazing.
We've had everyone's just open and upfront, and I think the whole dating crisis and all of this stuff. The simple solve is communication.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Is honesty and respect and boundaries and being upfront about what you want. If someone's starting to fall for you and you don't want something serious, telling them upfront rather than letting them fall in love with you and then ghosting them 17,000 years later. It's all of this just comes down to respect, accountability and good communication. And I think they are the three things that, due to the digitalization of dating and it effectively becoming a game or an Argos catalogue, they are the things that we're missing.
Yeah.
And it's going to take, I think there's a lot of gender bashing on all angles online. People are bashing the way women behave. People are bashing the way men behave. We're all doing everything wrong. People are only sharing their negative experiences, But I think it's on every single one of us to fix dating together. And it's on every single one of us to take positive steps and positive actions to sorting this shit out. it doesn't just sit with one person, it sits with everyone. So, none of us are perfect in dating, but if you are someone that's ghosting at the moment, or if you are someone that's, pursuing something isn't right, like, it's going to feel not nice at the time, but please just send that person a respectful text.
Yeah.
It takes 30 seconds. ChatGPT, I'm absolutely sure, could write it for you. And it costs nothing. Like, I think it's on absolutely every single person of every single gender to sort this mess out.
Yeah.
It doesn't just sit with men, it doesn't just sit with women. And I think dating apps need to take better accountability. We need more businesses promoting in real life experiences, whether that's my business or one of the other, fabulous events companies doing this. I'm really stood behind them. I'd champion them. I'd encourage anyone to go to any of their events. Good for them. Like, we need more people, trying to make dating less shit. Because it is shit.
I agree.
Do you hate it?
I fall in and out of love with it, I find it sucks up a lot of my energy and a lot of my time.
It's draining, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, my view, is that if I don't buy into this whole Cinderella, right person thing, but I also know that the person for me is someone where I will meet them and it doesn't feel draining, that they complement everything that I'm doing. So, but yeah, it's the Wild West out there right now.
But it's also still hard. So my boyfriend, right, I met him, we met at an awards ceremony. We were both up for an award, neither of us won it. So we bonded over the fact that neither of us won it. Stunning. And then we ended up going on a date 3 months later. It was a Monday night. I was tired. I was on my Hinge era. I probably had 3 other dates that week. We sat opposite each other on the table. We didn't kiss. So in my brain, I was like, right, friend zone. Just put him in a friend zone. We ended up reconnecting 8 months later. When I had a bit more time, I'd had a bit more headspace. So I'd done a bit of work on myself, and we fell madly in love. So he's like, cringe, don't tell him this. He's like one of the best things that's ever happened to me. He's my best friend. We love each other so much. But because I was in that toxic dating cycle, I was just like, oh, okay, next. Column number 6E on a spreadsheet, next. You know what I mean? So I think you're absolutely right in that it won't feel, you hope that when you meet the love of your life, it will maybe hopefully not feel as draining, but also I think in order to feel that spark, which I think everyone's chasing, or feel that right thing, we have to be realistic, and we have to allow ourselves the time and the headspace and the patience to know that not every single first date is going to be fireworks at Disney.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we meet so many people that have had amazing first dates from a Haystack, but they're like, yeah, but we decided it's better as friends. And I want to be like, based on what?
Yeah.
You spent 2 hours in B at 1 Balham, for God's sake. So I think...
Yeah, exactly. You only had 3 Mai Tais.
The more you get tired of dating, though, then the more it's an impossible cycle.
But I agree, and I think my advice to anyone that's finding that they're fatigued with this stuff is, it's the date yourself point, is take some time out of it. Rather 100%. Than seeing someone casually for a few months, that not working out, and then thinking, I need to replace that.
Go again.
Work out what's going on inside before you go out and poison someone else.
100%. Honestly, the 6 months I did off of dating was the best thing I ever did for myself.
Yeah.
I came back, I fell in love with the best guy ever. And also in terms of chasing sparks, I don't know how much you know about my story, but I went on, as I say, another date with my now boyfriend. He was like, right, I'm going to Vietnam. And I was going to Mexico. He was like, why don't you come traveling with me as a bit of a joke after a bottle of Merlot? And I decided to go. So I flew for 45 hours from Mexico to Vietnam. I had a load of people on Instagram, all for it. I had a load of women on Instagram being like, why are you chasing him? Never chase a man. He should chase you, all of this stuff. He couldn't move his plans in Vietnam. Also, I wanted to go to Vietnam. I'd never been before. I'd been to Mexico. So logistically, it made no sense, but it made much more sense for me to go to Vietnam than he could, And I went, and I got a load of backlash. I'd say 90% of people were so positive and excited and rah, rah. 10% of women were like, what the hell? Don't chase a man, never change your plans for a man, this, that, and the other. And I stood by it, and I was like, I haven't had a spark in a really long time. I really like this guy. I'm making the voyage, and if it doesn't work, I've seen a new country.
Yeah.
And I fell head over heels in love with him, and I've since had a load of women come back to me and be like, oh my God, okay, I met this guy, and now we're going to Stockholm for our 3rd date. And I'm like, go! Live your life, live the adventure.
Right, we're going to IKEA in Croydon.
But ignore any women listening to this, ignore any of the BS that women shouldn't try, or it's embarrassing to try, or you're desperate, or you're cringe, or you're da-da-da-da. I'm sorry, it's bollocks. If you find a spark or you like someone, chase it. See what happens.
Yeah,
cut off any of the BS that the men are supposed to be doing it, because by the sounds of it, the men aren't doing it. So let's just do it ourselves. Sorry.
great way to
But also,
finish.
you need to get the men to do it and I'll get the girls to do it.
That sounds like a good plan. Honestly,
Stunning.
if we can crack this, then we're going to solve modern dating.
Okay.
So,
Should we go do that now?
guys, you're both taken, I think. Lucy, thank you for that. I'm just
Slay.
going to wrap up. Massive thank you for sharing what you're seeing, I guess, on the front lines of modern dating at the moment.
Of course.
You've been a great guest. I think my reflection on this stuff is just go for it. You never know what's going to happen, right? And it's always worth going for something, even if there's a risk of feeling rejected, because otherwise you're just taking no action at all, and that's never going to lead to anything.
100%. I flew to Vietnam in front of 45,000 people.
Well, there you go.
And he could have friend zoned me. But I fell in love.
Love that.
Take the risk.
So, absolutely. Guys, just to remind you, send us a DM with any questions that you have for Lucy. As always, like, subscribe, comment. It really helps get the episode out of the rankings. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lucy.
Slay.
Slay.
Sorry.
We